Good evening. This is Maestro Cretella with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite modcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Ashes of Typhon. Our first player today is Dark Heretic, playing as the Warp Spider Exarch. This is a teleporting commander who teleports around the map. He can tie things up very easily. He also does range damage, so he's pretty good at bleeding a lot of early squads. He can generally be very annoying and a pretty powerful 1v1 hero. His opponent is Wise Windu, playing as the Orc Kommando Nob, a very sneaky orc by orc standards. He can infiltrate. He's got a very powerful twin-link shooter to start out. He can also switch that out for a knife, a rocket launcher, or a special shotgun shooter. And he's got a bunch of bombs too. Sneaky, orky hero. Before I start, I just want to say again, for those who didn't read a comment that I posted on one of my previous videos, that I'm in a very, very busy period of my life right now. I love this game so much, but just at this very moment, there's really nothing more important in my life than my graduate studies. I'm trying to keep up. I'd like to at least have a cast like once a week, although it's actually looking lately more like I'm doing one every 10 days or so. But yeah, this game right here is actually from the Elite Mod Championship tournament. It came during the group stage of the Elite Mod Championship tournament. I believe neither of these players advanced from the groups to the bracket, but they're still definitely solid players. Dark Heretic is a player who I've only become aware of pretty recently, but he's pretty solid. Wise Windu is someone who, in my perspective of things from having played this game for several years now, I still view him as relatively new, even though he's, well, not that new. But he's still a pretty good player considering how many hours he has or hasn't put in. He hasn't put in as many hours as much of the community, but he's very good considering that he hasn't put in as many hours. Now, we have our matchup right here of Eldar versus Orcs, or more specifically, the Warp Spider Exarch versus the Kommando Nob. The Warp Spider Exarch is generally a very powerful 1v1 hero because of how powerful he is at just resource disruption. Like, he doesn't have as much of the early... He doesn't appear like as powerful in fights as much as like a lot of the tanky melee heroes. He doesn't have that really starting impact in combat the way a hero like the Chaos Lord or the War Boss would have. However, a lot of his impact is in the map control he exerts. You can usually get away with shorter builds with the Warp Spider Exarch because the Warp Spider Exarch teleports around so much, just controlling the map. You can often get decaps on your opponent's natural requisition points, which can really, really disrupt their resource income. Not just because you are decapping their resources, but also because you are making them reset the requisition maturity. Right now we see this requisition at plus 30 requisition. You only have that when the requisition matures from having captured it a while. Every time you need to recapture a requisition point, it needs to re-mature. Now, we haven't actually seen much of that from Dark Heretic yet, but we do see that he is straight up using a shorter build. Right now, he does have the lead in VPs. Map control, actually, though, is overall in favor of Windu. Windu playing as the Orc Kommando Nob. Stormboys jumping in to the Dire Avengers. Dire Avengers trying to just fleet of foot out of there instead of just straight up retreating. It was a good attempt, but he kind of ran into a little bit of trouble because the Stormboys did manage to get a special attack on the Dire Avengers. They end up losing 2 models right there. Sometimes I think jumping Dire Avengers can actually be slightly risky because they might attempt a anti-melee grenade. So we have another jump by the Stormboys. Stormboys, sometimes a common purchase against Eldar if your opponent gets Guardian Weapons teams, which they usually do. Otherwise, you might kind of be at the mercy of the Guardian Weapons teams. Although the Kommando Nob is definitely a good hero for dealing with that. And my general perception of the Eldar versus Orcs matchup overall, I think I've generally heard it as favoring the Eldar, which doesn't surprise me. However, I have also heard that the Kommando Nob himself is actually very good against Eldar. And I mean, if we think about it, because he is an infiltrating hero, because he does have abilities like his starting stun bomb or his stick bombs, which he can upgrade to, he can actually probably help deal with these Guardian weapons teams pretty easily. Now, Dark Heretic trying to stick with this short build. He's only got 3 squads, the 2 Dire Avengers and the Guardian weapon team. He does appear to be losing on map control because of it. However, he also, I don't know if he may be attempting a fast tech. That's also definitely something that is considered viable and effective with the Warp Spider Exarch, in part because of how much map control you get out of the Warp Spider Exarch teleporting around the map. I feel like either a little drop micro from Dark Heretic right here, or he's just opting not to capture this point. Moving his Dire Avengers in, going for a Generator Bash, however, he really just doesn't quite have the strength to do that at this moment with only double Dire Avengers, but he is still actually getting a tech lead overall. But one of the things we unfortunately don't see from Dark Heretic is that right now he has nothing to detect the Kommando Nob. So he's really at the mercy of the Kommando Nob. He's not going to see any stun bombs or stick bombs coming out of the Kommando Nob right away. And there we do see some stick bombs going in. Not that great of a stick bomb shot, but still. And this is not a winning engagement for Dark Heretic right here, especially the lead Dire Avenger squad. But whoa, there are 2 grenades nearly wiping out the Storm Boys. Now, so Dark Heretic did go for a fast tech. He is getting to tier 2 first. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's really working out that great so far. Of course, it's a little early to tell. We still have a long game ahead of us. But he fast teched, but because he didn't really have like enough unit presence, enough field presence, because he didn't have enough units, he has lost the map control overall, and he is losing much of his generator farm right now. He does have a secondary power farm, so he's still getting a decent power income, but I imagine Windu is actually winning on the power income overall. But Dark Heretic is still at plus 49. That's fine. That's efficient, especially considering he has the advantage in terms of tech. So yeah, Dark Heretic choosing not to invest in Rangers, and Rangers are... I mean, Rangers are a fantastic unit, especially... I play Eldar a little bit, and to the extent that I play Eldar, I am a huge fan of Rangers. I almost always use Rangers if I play Eldar. But just for the purpose of detection, they are slightly inconvenient, since pretty much all the other detectors, or most of the other detectors, you can get them on a starting squad. So it's less expensive if you just want to get the detector. So we see a Wraithlord coming out from Dark Heretic. Meanwhile, a Death Dread on the way for Wise Windu, and as we see in the description, it is a Stompy Tin Can. Now, the Wraithlord is overall kind of in a good position, because right now first of all, there's actually really nothing out on the field that can deal with it. We do have a Storm Boy getting a Nob, so he will have heavy melee, but that's still definitely nowhere near enough to take out a Wraithlord, and in fact, having the Storm Boys engage the Wraithlord directly would definitely be a bad idea. They will definitely lose handily, and more importantly, they will bleed a ton. Look at these special new Storm Boys with that weird rocket pack. Wraithlord has upgraded to get the Shuriken Cannon. Both of the shoulder-mounted weapon upgrades for the Wraithlord are really, really good. Sometimes you kind of want to hold off to see which one you should get, and especially because the Wraithlord does not give up any of its melee capabilities when you get a shoulder-mounted weapon. Now, it's gone for the Shuriken Cannon. One of the great things about that is that it can really, especially against squads like Shooter Boys, the Wraithlord can just shoot at range and do a lot of damage to infantry squads at range, pretty much with impunity. The advantage if he had gotten the Bright Lance would mean that he could also threaten the Death Dread at range as well. And it's also great because the Wraithlord pretty much just straight up beat the Death Dread. Straight up beats the Death Dread, rather. They actually do the same DPS, but the Wraithlord does have more health. Right now it also has more repair support. But they're kind of focusing on different targets. Each of the players' walkers are actually focusing on the infantry, which is definitely the right choice for Wise Windu, because his Death Dread will lose to the Wraithlord. He does need to be a little careful though. He might want to at some point use the Death Dread's charge to just run out of there, get away from the Wraithlord, since it's just straight up not going to be a winning fight for him. Especially right now, as long as pretty much the only thing Dark Heretic actually has to threaten the Death Dread is his Wraithlord. However, he is upgrading to a Bright Lance on his Guardian weapon team. So he's got a lot more to threaten the Wraith Lord, or the Death Dread rather. Death Dread's going to have to be very, very careful. Warp Splitter Exarch being pretty brazen here, actually stops capping and starts walking toward the Death Dread. I think it probably would have been more worth his while to start walking back a little faster and maybe stay out on the field instead of really trying hard to get this contested power node. Looks like Dark Heretic is trying to draw the Wraith Lord into the firing arc of this Bright Lance. Meanwhile, we also have some tank busters out on the field to basically give a little more AV to deal with the Wraith Lord. So both of these players at this point, they definitely have enough to take out the opposing player's Walker. And it's mostly going to be about who manages their units well in these engagements. Dark Heretic still has the fewer forces overall, and I'm wondering what he's going to do about that. One thing he could do is drop an Autarch mid-engagement. That would both help him like win any engagement that comes up pretty soon. Could use it to tie up the tank busters, and it's just another nice unit to have, and that allows him to kind of equalize his forces a little bit with Wise Windus. So that's something I would personally like to see. It might be a good idea. I mean, he has enough AV to deal with the Death Dread, and it would really help to get the tank busters off their back. Grenades go in, mostly miss this time though, and now the Bright Lance is in a lot of trouble. Oh my god, unfortunately a huge blunder from Wise Windu. Use the tank buster barrage, hoping to catch either the Bright Lance or the Wraith Lord, and he ended up doing friendly fire to his own Storm Boys, knocking them over, and, well, pretty much getting them killed. So a huge blunder from Wise Windu, and now he's pretty much just in full retreat. His Stompy Tin Can is stomping back to base. He's got some Slugger Boys on repair duty, fully upgraded, and the Tank Busters even lost 3 of their models. Now, I guess one of the things I said earlier about that Warp Spider Exarch is that he can teleport around and do a lot of map control. It looks like we're also seeing a lot of that same thing from the Kommando Nob. Now, the Kommando Nob obviously doesn't get around as quickly as the Warp Spider Exarch, but he does get around unseen because he can infiltrate, and Dark Heretic still has not bothered with any kind of detector, and I'm wondering if we will even see him get one. It's curious because certainly without a Ranger squad, he really has no way of pretty much ever knowing what the Kommando Nob is going to do. And I think the Kommando Nob, I mean, it depends on what Wise Windu wants to get, but especially if he gets the upgrade that makes it so that infiltrating does not drain the Kommando Nob's energy, he can potentially be very, very powerful. But Generator Bash going down for Dark Heretic. He's now built up a pretty sizable force. He's thrown in some Wraith Guard on top of his Wraith Lord. I always like the Wraith Lord as a Tier 2 purchase as Eldar. I generally find it's the easiest choice to make. Well, maybe not the easiest. Usually either between a Wraith Lord or Warp Spiders are usually the 2 easier choices to make when you go to Tier 2 with Eldar. Warp Spider Exarch needs to teleport out of there. The Wraith Lord, because you're getting a vehicle, so you're putting that pressure on your opponent, and then that forces them into like the response stage of they need to get anti-vehicle. It can give you an advantage, can help you to push forward, especially if you get it out earlier. The Wraith Lord also really does a lot for both anti-infantry or anti-vehicle. In melee it works as either, and then you can get the shoulder-mounted weapon, whichever one you want, to go either way. So the Wraith Lord is definitely a very flexible choice. I think the main thing you need to worry about with the Wraith Lord is, depending on what your opponent gets, it is possible to find yourself in a situation, kind of an unbalanced composition situation, where the Wraith Lord might be in a position where it can die, depending on what your opponent gets. Which, I mean, that sounds kind of obvious, and I guess it should technically apply to any walker, but there are definitely times you can find yourself like with a Wraith Lord against a Space Marine Dreadnought, and then a Space Marine Dreadnought has an advantage over a Wraith Lord, and the Space Marines would also have more easy time getting out like a snare or something. Orcs maybe not as much, but now we do have a looted tank, so despite Despite Dark Heretic's early lead in tech, it looks like in the long run, Windu had the longer lead, or maybe not, because Dark Heretic just got to Tier 3 and already had a ton of resources, so that actually might mean that he was floating a bit in Tier 2. And here we go with some infiltrated Sluggo Boys using the Kommando Nobs, infiltrating global on the Sluggo Boys. And again, Dark Heretic has no way of detecting that whatsoever, so there's pretty much no way he can see that coming. And for a squad as powerful as Sluggo Boys, if anything, he's really, really lucky he did not lose that Bright Lance. But I think at this point, Wise Windu, maybe, well, certainly right now he's at an advantageous position compositionally, mainly because of this looted tank, which is going to hard counter the Wraith Lord, especially a Shuriken Cannon Wraith Lord. But even if this Wraith Lord had a Bright Lance, it would not have an advantage over a looted tank. Pretty much the general rule is that tanks have the advantage over all walkers. It's a general rule, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't take out a tank with a walker. Even ranged anti-vehicle walkers are going to be at a disadvantage against pretty much all tanks. Since tanks are more mobile, so that means they can always just drive away if a walker is winning, and then the walker cannot escape from a pursuing tank. It needs support. So, and this is another thing. We see Wise Windu, he's now gotten the rocket launcher on his Kommando Nob. So there's, again, going to be no way that Dark Heretic will actually be able to see any rockets coming from the Kommando Nob. Unless right now he just stands out in the open and just shoots like this. He is a little low on energy, but he's just right out in the open. Looted tank is not moving. Ooh, and so Dark Heretic takes the advantage there. Unfortunately, I think a lot of that was just not really great micro end positioning from Wise Windu. I think he drove the tank right into the Death Dread, and that just gave it enough time for the Wraith, with the Wraith Guard, excuse me, to finish it off. Meanwhile, I haven't been paying as much attention to the VPs. 333 to 280, so pretty even overall. With both players well in Tier 3, but wow, Wise Windu having just lost a bunch of stuff. So Dark Heretic definitely now with the advantage. Resources are pretty even, but Wise Windu has not preserved his things. He's still got the Death Dread, which unfortunately right now is actually really, really not that strong. He kept alive the Death Dread. I mean, if he had to lose one vehicle, he would have been way better off losing the Death Dread, but keeping the looted tank alive. So very, very unfortunate for him. However, he is getting knobs. Knobs are generally very strong. Not the easy I win button that some people think they are, but definitely a strong unit, regardless of what have people said about them. Whether people have said they're overpowered, or some people actually claim they're not so great. I don't know how many people actually say that, but they're definitely more than viable, generally effective. Sometimes if your opponent has a composition that is going to counter knobs, they won't be the best choice. I don't know if that's necessarily the case here. In fact, I would say, if anything, it isn't. Right now, the knobs will mostly, I think, be relatively uncontrolled. There's not a whole lot to control them. So I think Dark Heretic is mostly going to count on being able to do a lot of damage to the knobs, but there's nothing to really control the knobs. Anyway, uh-oh, Wise Windu, unfortunately now not looking so strong, got his Kommando Nob killed by this Warp Spider Exarch, who does have the heavy gauge Death Spinner, and now he's switching to the Entangling Web, which he is undoubtedly switching to that to help himself deal with the knobs, which is a very good answer for the knobs. Entangling Web just gives the Warp Spider Exarch an ability that will snare a targeted squad, so it's going to be perfect for the knobs. Then he can throw grenades on them, or he can have the Wraith Lord chopping them up. As it is, the knobs are actually really not doing that well at all, getting nearly killed by the combination of that Wraith Lord as well as just anything else here. But we do have Sluggo Boys overtaking things. I don't know if maybe they had been infiltrated. But yeah, the Death Dread is really not in that strong of a position, about to be hit by the Wraith Lord. So the Death Dread's just going to ignore the Wraith Lord and start going for the Dire Avengers, which is definitely a better use of its time, but it still has to really play a game of avoidance, because as long as the Wraith Lord's here, it really just it's not going to have free reign. Certainly, it's not going to have free reign at all. It's going to have very limited reign, whatever reign is. So here we see a bit of that entangle. you can just retreat out of it, and I think the grenades were on cooldown for both of these Dire Vendors, so not a whole lot happened to these Slugger boys, although one Slugger model did get hit by a sync kill from that Wraith Lord, which this Wraith Lord has actually been doing extremely well. It's level 3, it's being kept alive well into tier 3, and I think a big part of that is actually the Shuriken Cannon, which the shoulder-mounted Shuriken Cannon, which means he can kind of keep it at range, and it will actually do a ton of damage to Orc infantry squads, the Slugger boys, the Shooter boys. This Shooter boy squad still has no upgrades whatsoever. That is bizarre. I know he did have another squad that had a big shooter upgrade, but he lost that one, and he never bothered to get it on this squad. This is really surprising, because now we just have a tier 1 squad, still level 1, and it's only doing 7 DPS per model, or 35 DPS as a squad, which is really not that impressive overall. So this is basically a capping unit, since it's not going to be that effective as anything else. And I think Wise Windu is probably rightly prioritizing getting out maybe more squads at this point, since getting out some kind of new squad, especially like a tier 3 or tier 2 unit, will probably do a lot more for him than getting big shooters at this point in the game. Anyway, Kommando Nob comes out of infiltration, and he is shooting his rockets at the Wraith Lord. Wraith Lord's still actually going for the Nobs. Wraith Lord now in a bit of a risky position. It does have melee resist, but it does get a special attack on the Nobs, which does go a long way to improving its survivability. And Brightland's about to get mobbed by some Slugger boys. Something went down. That was the Wraith Lord finally did go down, so... Alright, so a good win for Wise Windu to stay in this game. Yeah, he's going to want to get the Death Dread out of there, so it's stomping out. I mean, well, to his credit, Wise Windu has managed to keep this Death Dread alive, and I think a harder vehicle to keep alive, and definitely one that doesn't scale as well as the Wraith Lord. And even to the extent that walkers scale, I'd say there really isn't... I don't know if there are any tier 2 walkers that really scale that well into tier 3. Maybe a Space Marine... Well, I should take that back. Space Marine Dreadnought with Dark Age of technology probably does pretty well. Upgraded Chaos Dreadnoughts probably do pretty well too. Probably more so the Khorne Dreadnought than the Tzeentch Dreadnought. But man, this game is still going. Commando's out for Wise Windu, so he's actually really playing into the fact that Dark Heretic still just isn't bothering to get anything whatsoever to detect. So he's really just going with infiltration, because Dark Heretic is choosing not to counter that. He just still hasn't bought a Ranger. Now, if you're playing as the Farseer, you actually can make that choice to not get a Ranger squad, because the Farsight Global will actually detect. But the Warp Spider Exarch has no such thing. So Dark Heretic just literally has no detection whatsoever. So these commandos could potentially be very oppressive. Throws a burner bomb. Kind of misses though, so he at least just opens fire. And the commandos are actually a very high DPS squad. They're actually, if anything, buffed from Retail to Elite, because they actually have standard range. But they're also overshadowed by... They are also definitely overshadowed by flash kits. Nobs get pulled into the Singularity, but they did have Frenzy activated, so they did not get hurt pretty much at all. And here they go with, they are entangled again. Warp Spider Exarch is right here, but with nothing to follow that up, the Nobs are going to be just fine. They're just going to stay here for a while. Some stick bombs go in on the Guardian Weapon team. Did not seem to do that much damage to it, but this is a level 3 Guardian Weapon team. And here is the Avatar of Cain. So, Dark Heretic actually now with the lead in VPs. Wise Windu actually doing pretty well to stay in this game, considering there were definitely some points when things were not looking well for him. But overall, Dark Heretic still definitely in the stronger position. He's got the lead in VPs, he's got more resources, more units. He's got an Avatar out on the field. Although Wise Windu currently has a double cap and actually soon to get a triple. And if he can hold the triple cap for a little while, and especially because he's now doing a lot of damage to this Warp Spider Exarch, he might just be able to even out the VPs quite a bit if he can get a triple cap. And of course, triple caps make the victory points tick down in your favor very, very quickly. Anyway, these double Dire Avengers have also been doing very, very well. Dire Avengers, although they definitely start off pretty weak, they're generally considered to scale much, much better than a lot of other Tier 1 range squads. Part of the reason this is they have their Exarch upgrade. Ooh, here are some more Slugger Boys. They just might take out this Bright Lance. Unfortunately, Dark Heretic has not seen it this time. He loses the Bright Lance. Now we've got some infiltrated Slugger Boys. They are going after the D-Cannon. D-Cannon is not retreating either. Alright, is now retreating. And I think lucky to get that knockback, or I think this also would have been a dead D-Cannon as well. A totally missed Wailing Doom. Some good plays by Windu, and some misplays by Dark Heretic. So, Dire Avenger scaling. They do get their Exarch, which gives them a passive damage resistance as well as more health. These Dire Avengers are also leveled. And of course they just have the utility of having a grenade as well as their energy shield. They also have the Embolden ability as well, which allows them to break suppression and increase their damage. So VP's evened out a little bit, but Dark Heretic's about to get the double cap back in his favor. Knobs are now fully upgraded, finally, so they've got their huge hammers, going to make them do a lot more damage. Would be nice for dealing with the Avatar if they can bait out the Wrath of Cain ability. Wrath of Cain is the ability that the Avatar does, kind of just in a radius around him, and just knocks back whatever is right around him. So Windu actually making a push. He's obviously making a push for Dark Heretic's natural, and that means that Windu is definitely going to get Dark Heretic's natural. We also now have the infiltrated commandos, and again, pretty much just doing what they want. They're just walking around. I imagine we might see a Burn-a-Bomb right here. There is the Burn-a-Bomb, and no love to Daka, but wow, look at the damage right there. They just might take out this D-Cannon weapon team. Pretty close call, but they take it out. Very, very nice play. Here is an Eldritch Storm, though. Eldritch Storm, unfortunately, not a great play for Dark Heretic right there. He did an Eldritch, didn't even hit the Death Tread that much, and he lost his Warp Spider Exarch trying to get away from those knobs. So things now starting to really, really go in Windu's favor. Windu with a Death Dread right here. A Death Dread still running around and fighting, doing well even in Tier 3, tying up Dire Avengers, sync-killing Dire Avengers. Here come the Knobs as well as the Slugger Boys. And the Warp Spider Exarch is lying down on the ground, so we have no Entangle to slow down these Knobs. Knobs might just get hit by the Wailing Doom. Most of them actually appear to have dodged that. They just seem to, because they're charged, they ran out of it even faster, and Dark Heretic is now in full retreat, practically being pincered in his base, even though he's got this Avatar of Cain out. And now it's Windu, clearly with the advantage. So many shifts in momentum in this game. Just a few minutes ago, Dark Heretic was sitting on a lead of, he had over 300 VPs. Wise Windu only had as many VPs as he had now. And now it's Dark Heretic who's going to be struggling to get out of there. I think he should be fine, since it looks like Wise Windu is retreating a lot of his forces. So that should enable Dark Heretics to get out of there. I don't think we're going to see Windu take the VPs just on this trip, or take the game just on this triple cap that he had. I think he's going to need to come out of his base again. It's going to be a few more engagements before this game comes to a close. Now, Wraith Guard are so tough that they can actually just stand here under the fire of these shooter boys. They can get a decap if they want, but here comes another Burn-a-Bomb from the Commandos. Dark Heretic is paying for not having a detector. Now, Dark Heretic does manage to get the decap, and these Wraith Guard are so tough that they're actually just standing there under the Commando fire. Commandos are not that tough, however, so they definitely are going to lose to the Wraith Guard. Even though one of the Wraith Guard models is dead, the Wraith Guard will definitely still clearly win over the Commandos in a straight-up range fight. So we see some support. Kommando Nob right here. And he does have that sneaky infiltration kit that removes the energy drain from the Commando. Yeah, so he can infiltrate as long as he wants. And Dark Heretic is not going to detect it. Wise Windu, however, lost another squad. He lost his shooter boys that had no upgrades whatsoever. He's getting a new looted tank, although I'm not sure that that's such a great idea. There are Warp Spiders out on the field. with a Haywire Grenade, a Wraithguard, Avatar. So I don't know if that's that great of an idea. We'll see, though. Now, we should see... Ideally, we should see a grenade from those Dire Avengers. Instead, he's just going to go straight to a Wailing Doom. But they already used... They used Frenzy. They just waited and they used Frenzy right before that. And here is actually a phase shift, so that means we have the phase armor from the Warp Spider Exarch. Just puts these units in stasis. They can't do anything whatsoever. They won't get hurt, but they just can't do anything. So it's basically just Dark Heretic stalling for time. They can't capture during that time, and that right now that's actually very important for Dark Heretic. He needs to stall as much as he can. If he can't win, he needs to stall. Now, unfortunately, it was completely ill-advised for Wise Windu to retreat the Nobs at that point, since he could have kept the Nobs there and actually captured Dark Heretic's natural VP. Unfortunately, things are getting a little bit tight for Dark Heretic because we have Commandos capturing this point. Commandos do kind of have that utility aspect. They do capture points 50% faster. They are, along with Tactical Marines, the only unit to have that trait. So I don't know if maybe Dark Heretic is going to put the Dire Avengers on the point, maybe with Embolden so that they won't completely die, although it's definitely a lot less safe for Dark Heretic to just put a unit on the point than it is for Wise Windu to put like his Nobs there or something. Or maybe if we see something like the Wraithguard, they're tough enough that they can just stand on the point. Warp Spiders are getting absolutely mauled. It's not looking good for Dark Heretic. Mega Boom Shot goes in. I don't actually remember if that's the real name. There's definitely some different names for the... I think it's the Mega Boom Shot from the looted tank. The Death Dread is in trouble. It's definitely in a situation where it will die, but I think Wise Windu is just kind of going all in at this point, because even if the Death Dread dies, right now he's just getting so much of an advantage by pushing Dark Heretic back, and it really is a question, can Dark Heretic get out quickly enough to put a squad on the point? Because we've got some Nobs here, we've got some under-strength Dire Avengers. I don't think they're going to be able to capture the point, and the Nobs are just going to go for the Wraithguard, who are the only ones who have the chance to cap. Wraithguard actually going for the looted tank, and Wise Windu is not microing, but the Wraithguard also get tied up. Dark Heretic manages to even it out, but here comes some Sluggo Boys for the back cap, and I don't know if Dark Heretic can really fight those, or the Warp Spider Exarch can fight those all by himself. Alright. Unfortunately, I don't know if that was also a well-timed retreat from these Dire Avengers, because he needs to get something on the point to capture it. Start putting the VP pressure back on Wise Windu, and I actually think Windu should have kept his Sluggo Boys in there. So Avatar is just chasing because the Avatar can't cap. And, ooh, the Warp Spider Exarch moving down here to cap, but he does not see this Kommando Nob getting the decap. This may also be Dark Heretic again putting himself in a rough position. This D-Cannon, if anything, it needs to go for the cap. Don't set up, just go for the cap. No, not a good idea. So it's a single cap for Windu, actually soon to be a 1-to-1, or a no-cap game. Avatar running away. Unfortunately, much of Wise Windu's army is coming back out, and he's getting a squad of Shooter Boys, which is, I think, totally bizarre. He's in Tier 3, he's got enough resources that he could but just be replacing Shooter Boys with Flash Kits or more Commandos, which, at this point in the game, that's definitely going to be better. It's not like he need aiming what's that. And of course, both those other squads will do a lot more damage than the Shooter Boys, and the Commandos also have much, much more utility. His Dire Avengers, I don't think he can really win this fight, so at best, first of all, he should split them up so they don't get all knocked down by Love Dadaka. And he needs to just try to force off the Commandos. Ooh, what is this? We have two things going. Here's the Eldritch Storm. We also have the Singularity pulling in the Nobs. Doing pretty well. Dark Heretic actually staying in this game quite miraculously. His Warp Spider Exarch is capturing his natural VP, but so is the Orc Kommando Nob capturing Wise Windu's natural VP. And Dark Heretic actually about to get a double cap, so he's actually about to give himself an advantageous position. He's got 6 squads right now, or 6 units. One of them is an Avatar, of course not a squad. Now he has to be very, very careful about the back cap from the Warp Spider Exarch, however. Or rather, well, I think more so Dark Heretic is going to have to be wary about the back cap from Wise Windu's Kommando Nob, since the Kommando Nob will more likely go undetected or unnoticed. He will literally go undetected and most likely go unnoticed. Shimmer Orb, very, very nice. This is some of that Warp Spider Exarch tech. Right now, this thing just prevents all incoming and outgoing range damage, and he's actually just going there and just straight up gets a decap. We're seeing some really, really nice plays by Dark Heretic to stay in this game. And then throwing on the phase shift on top of that means he's just stalling out these units from capturing the point back. So he just bought himself some time, basically just gave himself some time to tick down VPs in favor with a 2-0 cap. So that was pretty well played by him. He's just got to watch out for this D-cannon. Hopefully can stop the shooter boys, but the orcs are assailing. I think we have an attempted singularity. Unfortunately, we have a decap from the commandos. Some of them get pulled off the point and actually stops the cap, but not enough. And many of these units are kind of in retreat. Unfortunately, VPs, it's now going to be a single cap game for Wise Windu. He's about to get the double cap game, so this actually looks like it's going to be the game in his favor. I think Dark Heretic, if he wanted to stay in this game, he would need to put the D cannon on the point to capture it right here, and he should have sent his avatar to get the commandos off the point. But as it is, that's clearly going to be a win for Wise Windu. Overall, a great game, however, and we definitely saw some great plays on all sides, a few misplays, but overall a great game. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.